Hello and welcome back to Bricking It. Today we're going to be building up a few hallway modules for our Hogwarts, starting with one from the first film and possibly the most simple of all. There's not a lot of variety in this build, just a straight wall with one of these old-fashioned clip-on doors. Bit of colour with some medium nougat scattered throughout, and a few of these stickered portraits just for a bit of interest, but really it's just a plain wall. This is because we don't need a huge amount of interest in the wall, because all the interest is going to come from the contents of this module. First example of that is our fluffy build. Now looking at it like this, it really doesn't look like anything in particular. Just a couple of slopes and some palisade bricks and some claws, but really all I wanted was a mass of brown just to fill this doorway arch. And once we pop it in there, give it a bit of a persuade, you're going to see that really that's what it does. It just fills up this space, giving the vague impression of some kind of creature. And of course that's really sold by these three lovely head moulds that came in the latest version of the Fluffy Encounter. Now, I knew I didn't want an entire Fluffy in my castle, just no real need for it, because I'm not going to be doing any kind of trapdoor or connected passageway. I'm going to add a little more detail to this scene with a piece of furniture that I use in a lot of my hallways. This is going to be one of these stone torches. These are seen throughout the castle in the earlier builds, never really in the rooms, so it's just a good way to indicate that we're not inside a room, we're in a hallway. Simply made with some candle pieces and 1x1s with pin, and that's just going to be attached all together with this 2x2 plate, inverted dish, and then we've got a stud with a hole and a flame piece. It's just going to sit in the top. That's a very nice simple way to build one of these stone torches. Now many other creators on YouTube have come up with different ways of doing this. I think Brick Sanchez has got a way of doing it, and I know that Duncan Egg Bricks has done a different one as well. To complete the scene, we're going to add Harry, Ron and Hermione, desperately trying to push that door closed and get Fluffy contained back in his room. So once everything's in, you can see that that wall really doesn't need to be that interesting, because all of the fun comes from the foreground. Moving on to the Chamber of Secrets, I'm going to make another hallway scene, and this of course is going to be the writing on the wall. Got the base prepared, and we're just going to add this brick built door, using those curved slopes at the top just to give it some shape. And that's going to be mirrored by this door frame with curved slopes at the top again to mirror that shape. I'm going to mount this on jumpers just so it stands a little out from the door, so we just don't get that continuous flatness. Another fairly plain wall, we've added in some textured masonry bricks just to reflect that masonry on the sticker. Now I'm going to use these dark tan jumpers. I'm going to start trying to integrate these two parts into a cohesive whole. You see the jumpers bring our studs back in line with the wall. I'm going to use a row of these rail plates which stick proud of the wall and bring this stripe of dark tan into line with the depth of the jumpers. Just gives us a nice architectural look overall. Going to build that up to the height of our corridor with some bricks and the half round tiles I use as a matter of course. So we've got some nice texture on this one, a little more interesting. Got that sign for the toilets above the door, and of course going to add in one of our torches. That's quite a nice, a mysterious looking scene just to sit in the castle at any time, but of course once we start adding minifigs it really improves the scene. You'll notice Miss Norris isn't included because I haven't found a good way to attach her to the wall, but as soon as I do I'll bring her in. Skipping all the way ahead now to the Order of the Phoenix. This is a scene never made it into the film but was in the books, and that of course is where Fred and George transform an entire corridor of the school into a swamp. And so that's what we've done here, using these dark blue tiles to represent our swampy water. We've added a little archway that's going to be a doorway into a classroom or perhaps into another corridor. And for our wall, we're actually going to add a large feature window. Again, we're using those curved slopes at the top because we're using this curved arch. Got some jumpers on the top, and they're also going to help realign our studs. And again, we're just using the frame and the window just to create a bit of texture on the wall, just to bring them out so it's not just a flat featureless wall. So as I said, those jumpers have aligned our studs. It's just a matter of adding a couple of plates. Of course, a row of half rounds. Just add a little lip on this one as well, just so it gives us a kind of sill to the door, and again just something interesting. It's not interfering with our eye line once we place our miniatures onto the scene. As you can see, this door goes all the way through and there's no backing to it. That's just because if we've got it in front of another module, obviously you can see through that. It just gives the castle a lot more depth, a lot more interest. Now, of course, none of the teachers were willing to help Professor Umbridge drain this swamp, so the task fell to Mr. Filch to punt all of the students across the swamp to their classes. And of course, by punt we don't mean drop kick them, we mean take them in a shallow draft vessel across the swamp. And that's what we're building here, slightly and vaguely reminiscent of the boats from the boathouse set. I think this one's originally based on the Black Lake second task, but elements of each just to create this little shallow punt. And of course we're going to need Mr. Filch. He's going to be standing up here on the plate at the back. So there we go, there is our swamp corridor. Moving on to a slightly more generic hallway, and this really is the plainest it could possibly be. Nothing special, all the bricks are the same colour. We've got a small 1x window, we're duplicating that, and for the central panel, not really any kind of interest at all. This is just going to be a backdrop. We really don't want this getting in the way of what we're showing in front. We want it all to be about the minifigs and the scene we're setting here. We are still going to make it a little bit interesting by adding some pillars, again on jumpers. These are going to be topped by 1x2s, and they are attached using their central peg on the hollow studs of the pillars, and that again will help us bring our studs back into line at the top of the build so we can secure it all. Don't worry about these, it's just because I ran out of 1x1s in tan. There's our plate layer and our rounded studs, finishing off the top of our wall as usual. And there's a nice plain, although not completely dull, backdrop where we can display our torch, telling us it's in the hallway. Maybe something a bit more fancy, like a suit of armour. Once we add in a few minifigs to this, it really does appear like a nice vibrant corridor. And again, the plainness of the background is not so much of an issue because it's all about what's in the foreground. We can use this to set other scenes, like maybe Peeves and the Vanishing Cabinet, or we can add the Humpback Witch in for when Harry's trying to escape the school to go to Hogsmeade, or maybe we'll get a bit fancy and display our Hogwarts architect. Moving on to another generic hallway, and this one really is designed for many students. Very simple build yet again. Most of the interest though this time, rather than coming from any kind of architectural detail, although there are some, is going to come from these two panels covered in portraits, some of which have been inexpertly cut out from other stickers, just so I can get as many portraits onto these panels as possible. And to disguise the edges of the panels, we're just going to add yet again a row of pillars. Now these are off centre, so they're between two studs. To secure them, we're going to need to bring in a Technic brick and pin, and then another 1x1 Technic brick. Just covered the hole with one of those shield pieces. Not the best cover up job. It kind of does what we want it to do and helps us secure those pillars so they're not flopping around loose all over the place. That of course leaves us with these two gaps above each panel. What I've decided to do is just add in some house colours, and I've gone for, in this instance, Hufflepuff and Gryffindor, and that just maybe gives the suggestion that these are portraits of famous members of those houses. That's our wall complete. You don't have to go for these sort of house coloured panels. It's not completely the kind of thing you'd see in a film. Maybe you want to put one of these Hogwarts crests that we got in the latest Charms class, or possibly a house badge like came in the latest Advent calendar. You can use these studs just in front of the wall to add a little bit of permanent detail to this module. Just going to put in a couple of short benches. We see these occasionally in movies. Once when a couple of students are kissing and Umbridge comes along and separates them, gives us somewhere for our students to hang out. But my favourite is in Half-Blood Prince, where Harry and Ron had a free period and they stand up on the benches watching all the students go by, head into their classes. So really pack this one out. I'd never really display it like this, but I thought as I had more jumpers than I had tiles, this is how I'd set up the floor. I've got one more honourable mention. You'll notice this is only 6 deep and most of my bases are 8 deep. And this is actually the entrance hall base, and that usually would be displayed with this wall. On this side, obviously, it's set up for Order of the Phoenix with the ministry proclamations. Quite simple builds, just using a bracket and some cheese wedges. And then a tile with the sticker on. Don't know what these bits are at the side, just a bit of detail. But it's reversible, and on this side we have a selection of portraits, which I really need to space out better. They do not look good being that random. Either way, this base can display with either educational decrees or with a selection of portraits, but really both of these two are designed to bracket another piece, and that of course is our grand staircase. So this is a full 8x14 piece, slots straight in and fills up all the space of one module. Didn't really finish it at the back because you're never going to see that. But what it's supposed to represent is a large stairway that splits and the students are coming and going from either side. And to help reinforce that idea, this is where the portraits will usually display as the back wall to their staircase. And then just to give us a bit more room, we've got this open floor in the front, and these will all slide in usually in this order to create our entrance hall. So there we go, that's all of our hallway modules, and they look fair enough on the table. Let's put them in the castle and see how they look there. So here we are in the castle, and we're going to concentrate mainly on this main classroom shelf, because this is one of the few where all of the walls can come out. You can take out Professor Binns and Professor McGonagall's blackboards and the entirety of Charms, and all of those walls come out now, exposing some of the spare modules behind and giving us a fully open hallway. It's another work in progress that I'm just trying out. Maybe a hall goes round the corner. Haven't decided if I like it or if I want to develop the idea, so for now we'll just hide that away. Let's bring in our hallway pieces. So there's our portrait gallery, our plain pillared hallway and the writing on the wall. And if we see here and here, we've got some depressions where the walls usually go, and that gives us a spot where we can put some armour and maybe a statue, just to make them continuous. Once we've spread the minifigs out, really get a full hallway scene. When it comes to staging things like the Battle of Hogwarts, I really want these larger open spaces, just so I can stage some duels and have the spell effects really zipping around the place. Going to add in a swamp corridor up on the level above. Let's also put in the fluffy encounter. This is the usual spot where it goes. And down here on the left, just between the Great Hall and the library, I'm going to add the 3 elements of our entrance hall. Now these can all be displayed individually. The entrance hall can be smaller, could just be the wall. We've got a few options there. Flap down our house banners. They do obscure the statues, but it's not really, the statues aren't really meant to be there. These ones are though. They help hold the bases in. So we'll just add in our last statues. Now this isn't the only corridor in Hogwarts that has open space. Obviously Defence Against the Dark Arts is a double wide. And if we remove the walls from these classrooms and take away the Ravenclaw common room, we actually have another hallway up at the top. Just take out this double height module. These would all be shuffled away behind when other things are on display. And you see we've got another full width hallway. That double-sided one where Defence Against the Dark Arts are. And we've even got this tiny little hallway here outside the classroom. So there we go. Those are our Hogwarts hallways displays so far. All that remains to say is thank you very much for watching. If you've enjoyed this video, please do leave us a like. And for more Hogwarts mock builds, please subscribe to Bricking It. Bye bye.